My entitled brother demanded my savings to pay off his debt. When I refused, he turned my family against me. I've always had a strained relationship with my brother, Adam. Growing up, he was the golden child, the one my parents praised endlessly, even when he messed up. He was the rebellious, charismatic one who could charm his way out of anything, while I was the quiet, responsible sibling who followed the rules. No matter what Adam did, it was never his fault, and he always found a way to shift the blame onto someone else. As adults, not much changed. Adam jumped from one bad decision to another, quitting jobs, borrowing money he never paid back, and constantly getting himself into trouble. Meanwhile, I worked hard, saved diligently, and built a stable life for myself. I never flaunted my success, but it was no secret that I had my finances in order. I thought Adam respected that, but I was wrong. A few months ago, Adam hit a new low. He'd racked up thousands of dollars in credit card debt, mostly from partying, vacations, and impulsive purchases he couldn't afford. He'd borrowed money from our parents, but they were nearing retirement and couldn't keep bailing him out. So, naturally, Adam turned to me. "Hey, can we talk?" Adam asked, showing up unannounced at my apartment. His face was flushed, and he looked more nervous than I'd ever seen him. I knew something was up, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. "Sure, what's going on?" I replied, already bracing myself for the worst. "I need a favor, a big one." He hesitated, shifting uncomfortably on the couch. "I'm in a bit of a financial mess. The credit cards, the late fees, it's all just piling up. I can't get ahead, and I don't want to lose everything." I nodded, trying to remain empathetic. "I'm sorry to hear that. Have you looked into any debt management programs or financial counseling?" He scoffed, waving off my suggestion. "I don't have time for that. What I really need is a loan, just until I get back on my feet. I swear I'll pay you back." I knew what was coming, and it took everything in me not to roll my eyes. "How much are we talking?" He hesitated, then mumbled, 15,000? I nearly choked on my coffee. 15,000? Adam, that's a lot of money. I can't just hand that over. His face twisted in frustration. "You have the savings. You've always been the responsible one, the one who did everything right. You can afford this. I can't ask Mom and Dad anymore. They're tapped out. You're my last hope." I stared at him, unable to believe his audacity. He didn't see this as a favor. He saw it as something he was entitled to, just because I'd managed my life better than he had. "Adam, I worked really hard for that money. It's for emergencies, my future, maybe even buying a house someday. I'm not a bank." He scoffed, his expression darkening. "So that's it? You're just going to let your brother drown in debt? I'm your family." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. "I am your family, Adam, and I've helped you before. But this isn't just a small loan. It's a massive amount of money. I'm sorry, but I can't do it." Adam's face turned red, and he jumped up from the couch, pointing a finger at me like I'd just betrayed him. "You're selfish. You have all this money sitting around, and you'd rather let your own brother suffer than help out. You're pathetic." I stood up, feeling my own anger rising. "I'm not selfish for protecting my future, Adam. I've been there for you time and time again, but you need to take responsibility for your own actions. You can't keep expecting everyone to bail you out." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I thought that was the end of it, just another argument in a long line of disagreements between us. But I underestimated just how far Adam would go to get what he wanted. Over the next few days, my phone started blowing up with messages from family members. My parents, my aunt, even my cousins. Everyone was suddenly furious with me. "How could you turn your back on your brother?" they demanded. "He's in real trouble, and you're the only one who can help." Adam had spun a sob story, painting me as the heartless sibling who refused to help while he was drowning in debt. He told everyone that I was hoarding my money, living the high life while he struggled just to get by. It didn't matter that none of it was true. My family believed him. After all, Adam had always been the charmer, the one who could twist the narrative to his favor. I was devastated. I had always been close to my family, and now they were all turning against me. My parents left voicemails filled with disappointment, telling me how ashamed they were of my behavior. "We raised you better than this," my mom scolded. "Family helps family." I felt like I was being gaslit by my entire family. No one wanted to hear my side, to understand that I wasn't refusing to help out of spite. I was refusing because I couldn't enable Adam's reckless behavior any longer. But every time I tried to explain, I was met with accusations and guilt trips. Then, one day, my father showed up at my door, looking more serious than I'd ever seen him. "We need to talk," he said, walking inside without waiting for an invitation. My dad sat down at the kitchen table, crossing his arms and giving me the kind of look that instantly made me feel like a kid again. Small, guilty, and cornered. "You know, your brother has his faults," he started, his tone heavy with disappointment. "But he's still your family. I don't understand why you're being so stubborn about this." I tried to keep my voice calm, though my frustration was bubbling just beneath the surface. "Dad, it's not about being stubborn. It's about the fact that Adam never learns. Every time he screws up, he comes running to us expecting us to fix it. He needs to take responsibility for once." My dad sighed, rubbing his temples. "We've all made mistakes. Lord knows your mother and I weren't perfect parents, but we've always supported each other. Family doesn't turn its back when things get hard." "Except that's exactly what you're doing to me," I shot back, unable to hold back my anger any longer. "I'm the one being vilified here because I won't just hand over my savings. You're acting like I owe him something just because I've managed my life better. But I'm not the villain here, Dad. I'm tired of bailing him out." Dad's expression softened, but he still looked torn. "Your mother and I are just worried about him. He's in a really bad place, and we're scared he's going to do something drastic. You're right, he needs to learn, but maybe this isn't the time to teach him a lesson." I could feel the guilt creeping in, twisting my stomach. I didn't want anything bad to happen to Adam, but I also knew that giving him the money would only encourage his reckless behavior. "I'm not trying to teach him a lesson, Dad. I'm trying to protect myself. I can't keep putting myself at risk to clean up his messes." Dad nodded slowly, as if he finally understood where I was coming from. But then he said, "If you won't help him, then at least consider this. Can you live with yourself if something happens to him? If this is the thing that finally pushes him over the edge?" His words hit me like a punch to the gut. The idea of something happening to Adam, of him spiraling further because I refused to help, haunted me. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't save him from himself. I couldn't keep sacrificing my own well-being for someone who refused to change. "I can't keep living my life based on what-ifs, Dad," I said quietly. "I love Adam, but he needs to hit rock bottom and figure this out on his own. It's the only way he's ever going to learn." Dad left after that, looking more disappointed than angry. I knew I hadn't changed his mind, but at least I had stood my ground. It was a small victory, but it felt hollow. The days that followed were filled with more angry messages from family, and Adam's smear campaign showed no signs of slowing down. He was relentless, and my reputation within the family was crumbling. I decided to take a break from social media, avoiding the barrage of negativity. I needed to focus on my own mental health, and that meant distancing myself from the toxic drama Adam had created. But just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I got a call that flipped my world upside down. It was late one night when my phone rang. It was Adam. My heart sank. I hadn't heard from him directly since our fight, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to deal with whatever he had to say. I hesitated before answering, bracing myself for another guilt trip or angry tirade. But instead, Adam's voice was shaky, broken. "I'm sorry," he said, his words barely above a whisper. "I've messed up so bad, and I don't know what to do anymore. I'm scared, Jane. I don't want to lose everything." Hearing the raw fear in his voice was like a punch to the gut. This wasn't the manipulative, entitled brother I'd been dealing with. This was someone who was genuinely lost and terrified. For the first time, I heard the desperation that he'd been hiding behind his anger. "Adam, you need help," I said, my voice softening. "Not just financial help, but real, professional help. You've got to talk to someone who can help you figure this out." He sniffled, and I could hear him trying to hold back tears. "I know. I just don't know where to start. Everything's falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it." We talked for hours that night, more honestly than we had in years. Adam admitted that he was overwhelmed, that his life felt out of control, and that he'd been using his anger to avoid facing the mess he'd made. For the first time, he didn't make excuses. He owned up to his mistakes, and he asked me for advice on how to start putting the pieces back together. It wasn't an easy conversation, and there were no quick fixes, but it was a start. I helped him research debt management programs and put together a plan for his finances. I even connected him with a therapist who specialized in financial stress and anxiety. Adam was hesitant at first, but he agreed to give it a shot. In the weeks that followed, I saw small changes in Adam. He cut back on his spending, took on extra hours at work, and started attending therapy sessions regularly. It was slow progress, and he still had a long way to go, but for the first time, he was making an effort to take control of his life. He even called our parents and explained that he was working on getting his finances in order without asking them for more money. I won't lie, our relationship is still strained, and I'm still wary of falling back into old patterns. But Adam is trying, and that's more than I've seen from him in years. I still have to remind myself not to let my guard down completely, but I'm cautiously hopeful. We may never have the perfect sibling relationship, but we're learning how to coexist in a healthier way. And maybe, just maybe, Adam is finally starting to realize that the only person who can truly save him is himself. The weeks turned into months, and while things weren't perfect, they were better. Adam was slowly paying off his debts, cutting back on his reckless spending and working hard to keep up with his therapy. There were still moments when he slipped back into old habits, impulse buys, nights out he couldn't really afford, but they were happening less and less. He'd call me sometimes when he was feeling particularly overwhelmed, and though our conversations were still tense, there was a sense of progress that I hadn't seen in him before. One afternoon, I got a call from my dad, who sounded surprisingly upbeat. "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that your brother seems to be doing better. He's been talking to us about his progress and, well, I think he's really trying this time." I was glad to hear it, but I couldn't help but be guarded. "That's great, Dad. I'm glad he's making an effort." He even mentioned that he's been apologizing to some of the family members he lied to, Dad added. "He told them the truth about everything and how he'd exaggerated things about you. He said he felt terrible about turning everyone against you." Hearing that felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I hadn't realized how much it had bothered me that my own family believed the worst about me. Knowing that Adam was finally taking responsibility for his actions and setting the record straight meant more to me than I could put into words. The next day, Adam called me. There was a cautiousness in his voice, like he wasn't sure how I'd respond. "Hey, Jane, I just wanted to thank you for everything. I know I've put you through hell, and I don't expect you to forgive me overnight, but I'm trying to make things right." I appreciated his honesty, but I wasn't ready to just let everything go. "I know you're trying, Adam, and I'm glad. But it's going to take time for us to rebuild trust." "I get that," he said quietly. "I've been talking to my therapist about it, and I'm working on not expecting everything to be fixed right away. I don't want to lose you as my sister." There was a long pause, and I could hear the sincerity in his voice. For the first time, it felt like he was truly remorseful, not just for his actions, but for the impact they had on me and the rest of the family. "I don't want to lose you either, Adam," I admitted. "But you have to keep putting in the work, not just for us, but for yourself." He promised me he would, and though I still had my doubts, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that this was the start of something better. A few weeks later, Adam surprised me by asking if I'd like to join him for a family dinner at my parents' house. I hesitated at first, unsure if I was ready to face everyone after everything that had happened. But Adam insisted, saying he wanted to formally apologize to me in front of the whole family. When the night came, I walked into my parents' home feeling a mixture of anxiety and hope. The atmosphere was tense at first, with everyone tiptoeing around the elephant in the room. Adam looked nervous, fidgeting with his napkin, but eventually he stood up and cleared his throat. "I want to say something," he began, his voice shaky but determined. "I've been selfish, reckless, and dishonest. I turned my family against each other because I didn't want to face the consequences of my actions. I've hurt people who care about me, especially Jane, who has always been there for me. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'm committed to doing better." He turned to me, his eyes filled with genuine remorse. "Jane, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the lies, the manipulation, and for putting you in a position where you felt you had to choose between helping me and protecting yourself. I should have never put you in that spot." My parents sat quietly, taking it all in. My mom wiped away tears, and my dad nodded, clearly proud of Adam for finally owning up to his mistakes. I took a deep breath, feeling a surge of emotion. It wasn't the perfect apology, but it was a start. "I appreciate that, Adam," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want us to move forward, but it's going to take time. I need to see that this change is real." After dinner, the family stayed up talking, reminiscing about better times and slowly mending the fractures that had formed over the years. It felt like a small victory, a tentative step toward healing. Adam and I didn't resolve everything that night, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the same page. As we said our goodbyes, Adam pulled me aside. "I know this doesn't fix everything, but I want you to know that I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep working on myself, and I'm going to prove to you that I'm not the person I was." I nodded, giving him a small smile. "I believe you, Adam. Just don't forget that actions speak louder than words." The ride home was quiet, but for once, it wasn't filled with the usual tension and dread. I felt lighter, like the weight of our past was slowly lifting. There was still a long road ahead, and I knew things wouldn't be perfect, but we were finally moving in the right direction. I don't know what the future holds for Adam or our family, but I do know that I'm proud of the progress we've made. For the first time in years, I'm hopeful that our relationship can heal, that we can rebuild the trust that was broken. It won't be easy, but it's worth it. After all the pain, the drama, and the heartache, we're finally learning what it means to be a family again. And that, more than anything, gives me hope. The next few months were filled with cautious optimism. Adam was continuing to make strides, albeit slowly, and our family dynamics were beginning to shift in a positive direction. The constant tension that had once filled every interaction was starting to dissipate, replaced with a tentative peace. I found myself spending more time with Adam, not because I felt obligated, but because I genuinely wanted to support him on his journey to self-improvement. We started meeting up for coffee on Sunday mornings, just the two of us. It became a new ritual, a way for us to reconnect outside of the family drama. We talked about everything, our jobs, the latest Netflix shows, and sometimes, when he felt up to it, Adam would share bits and pieces about his therapy sessions. He was learning to set boundaries, not just with our family, but with himself. It was inspiring to watch him try so hard to change, even when it was clear that he was struggling. One Sunday, Adam arrived with a small, wrapped gift. I raised an eyebrow, surprised. "What's this?" He shrugged, looking uncharacteristically shy. "Just something I thought you might like. Kind of a thank you for not giving up on me." I opened the box to find a framed picture of us as kids, sitting side by side on the swings at the park, beaming at the camera. It was a simple, innocent memory from a time before all the chaos. I hadn't seen that photo in years, and the sight of it brought tears to my eyes. I found it going through some old albums at Mom and Dad's, Adam said, his voice soft. I thought it was a nice reminder of where we started. I nodded, touched by the gesture. Thank you, Adam. This means a lot. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping our coffee and looking at the picture. It was a quiet, unspoken acknowledgement of the progress we had made. Things weren't perfect, but we were healing, little by little. As Adam continued to make positive changes, our parents also began to soften. They stopped pressuring me to bail him out financially and instead focused on encouraging his newfound sense of independence. It was as if everyone had collectively realized that supporting Adam didn't mean enabling him. It meant holding him accountable, cheering him on when he succeeded, and being there to guide him when he faltered. One afternoon, Mom called me, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and relief. You won't believe it, but Adam just got promoted at work. They said he's been doing a great job managing his responsibilities, and they offered him a higher position. I couldn't help but smile. That's amazing. I'm so proud of him. Mom sighed, her tone turning reflective. You know, Jane, I think we all owe you an apology. We put so much pressure on you to fix everything, and we didn't see how unfair that was. You were the only one who saw that Adam needed to figure this out on his own. Hearing those words felt like validation I didn't realize I needed. Thanks, Mom. It was hard, but I think we're all better for it. As the weeks turned into months, our family gatherings became less about avoiding conflict and more about celebrating each other's progress. Adam was still far from perfect. He had his bad days, and there were moments when old habits tried to creep back in, but he was genuinely trying, and that effort made all the difference. One evening, we had a family dinner at my parents' house. It was the first time in years that it felt like old times. No underlying tension, no dramatic outbursts, just us enjoying each other's company. As we sat around the table, laughing and reminiscing, I realized that this was what I had been fighting for all along. Not perfection, but progress. A family that was willing to put in the work, to be honest with each other, and to grow together. After dinner, Adam pulled me aside, looking more relaxed and confident than I'd ever seen him. I've been thinking a lot about everything, he said. And I know I've said it before, but I really am sorry, Jane. I can't undo the past, but I want you to know that I'm committed to being a better brother, a better person. I smiled, feeling a surge of pride. I know you are, Adam, and I'm proud of you. Just keep doing what you're doing, one step at a time. As I drove home that night, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. The journey hadn't been easy. There were moments when I thought we'd never get past the hurt and the anger. But here we were, slowly piecing our family back together, one day at a time. Adam and I still had our ups and downs, but the important thing was that we were moving forward. We were learning to respect each other's boundaries, to communicate honestly, and to let go of the past. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was ours. Looking back, I realized that the greatest gift I had given Adam wasn't my money or my time. It was my belief that he could be better. It was standing by him without enabling him, loving him without losing myself, and pushing him to be the person I knew he could be. Our relationship was still a work in progress, but for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. We were no longer defined by the mistakes of the past, but by the commitment to do better, to be better, and to keep moving forward together. And that, I knew, was worth all the heartache in the world.